Welcome into Road to the Draft, presented by Raymond James. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. And as always, this is where we update you on all the latest news and happenings that will affect what the Buccaneers might do in the draft. And as always, like most people, we love talking about round one. You know, that's where all the hype and hoopla tends to be. But we know great players can be found in any round. And so as much as we have talked about some different positions or individual players in round one that we think the Buccaneers might target, let's talk about day two. I feel like that day in particular tends to be pretty exciting. You can find some gems there in those rounds. So what do you feel like are the big things that stand out to you about this idea of day two, and we can start with round two?
Yeah, day two is rounds 2 and 3. And just if you look over the last, say, 4 years, the Bucs' entire secondary was built on day two picks. You know, lots of corners and safeties. Count Jordan Whitehead as a 4th-round pick, close. And so those are very important picks. You know, day two, second-round picks, that's where we got Donovan Smith and Ali Marpet a few years back. So those picks are obviously very important. And, yeah, we've been talking a lot about the first round. But if we talk about the second round, it's a little harder to predict, of course. But you can actually look at maybe what the Buccaneers need and some of the prospects that might be there and maybe connect the little dots and say, hey, maybe the Bucs will go after this or that. And I was just talking about how the Buccaneers have done a great job in recent years of building up their secondary with day two picks. Problem is, those guys are good and they become free agents after 4 years, and some of them, like Jordan Whitehead, leave. Carlton Davis was re-signed, but we've got other guys coming up next year: Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Mike Edwards. So you kind of have to keep replenishing those spots, and as I've always said, you can't have enough good cornerbacks. So I think near the end of the second round might be a good spot for the Buccaneers to get some secondary depth. And I actually put this stuff together before the Buccaneers signed Keanu Neal yesterday. So I was going to talk about one safety, Baylor's Jalen Petre. I think he's a guy that sort of a versatile guy that can play up in the box or in back farther in the secondary. As you can see here, he can rush the passer a little bit too. He's a guy that the Buccaneers might be interested in for some depth there. Also, if you want to look at cornerback, there's a guy for UTSA, San Antonio, named Tariq Woolen. And he's the kind of body size and skill set that Todd Bowles likes, big, long cornerbacks with speed. He's a little bit raw maybe for an NFL cornerback prospect, but he's got a really nice skill set. So I think the Buccaneers could, because they're pretty much set for starters at cornerback, they could take him, have some depth there, and develop him a little bit, and then he could help if the Buccaneers do lose some corners in the future. Okay, and then how about round three? It gets even harder to start predicting at this point, but what are some of the guys that you could see maybe being a round three pick for the Bucs? Yeah, I'll do a little transition there because I meant to also talk about round two, a position the Buccaneers could possibly address near the end of the second round is running back, because in this year's draft, if you look at the mock drafts, a lot of them don't even have a running back going until like midway through the second round. So if you're talking about the top 2 or 3 backs, the Buccaneers might have a shot at one of them near the end of the second round. One I wanted to mention was Michigan State's Kenneth Walker, who really had a very nice season last year, a powerful runner, very, very productive. I don't know if he's necessarily proven as a pass catcher. He looked fine in that little clip right there. But, the Buccaneers have brought back Leonard Fournette, and they have Keyshawn Vaughn, but you could probably use another guy in there and maybe a guy for the future. So they might have a shot in the second round, but they might also have a shot at a running back if they wait and do something like secondary in the second round. In the third round, because again, there's a lot of like middle round depth there, but they're not going early. So maybe if you're talking in the third round, you might go for a guy like Georgia's James Cook, who is the younger brother of Dalvin Cook, the great running back for the Vikings. The younger brother James isn't as big and powerful of a runner as Dalvin is, but he's a really nice pass catcher out of the backfield. And, that's something that maybe could fit in right away. That could maybe help you right away because Leonard Fournette is good out of the backfield, and obviously Gio Bernard is too, but another dynamic guy that can catch passes could really help you there. So, all right. And then maybe also, I was talking earlier when we were doing our live show on Facebook that the Buccaneers need some tight ends, just merely by numbers. And that's another spot where the tight ends aren't going early in the first round or maybe to like midway through the second round. So there should be some good depth available in the third round. And a guy that the Bucs might be interested in is Washington's Cade Otton. He's a very good and willing blocker, so that's a nice place to start. He could develop maybe a little bit more as a pass catcher. He's got some skills there, so he has a shot possibly to be one of those two-way tight ends that you can play on all three downs that are kind of hard to find.
Right, and right now, as of shooting this, we still don't know if Gronk will be back.
Correct.
And knowing that at this point, when Cody McElroy and Cam Brate are your main ones on the roster, and they're more known for their pass catching, that could
Right.
change the type of tight end
Yes.
they really need to target.
You would like a guy that first and foremost can block.
Can block, absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Road to the Draft presented by Raymond James, and we'll be back here next week like we are every week leading up to the draft to make sure you guys are fully informed of what the Buccaneers might do. We'll see you then.